In 2017, a 5-minute VR short film called Pearl did something nobody really expected. It got nominated for an Academy Award. Not a feature, not a prestige drama, a 5-minute animated short made by a tech company as an experiment. And it walked into the Oscars like it belonged there. What makes Pearl fascinating isn't just that it's short, animated, or experimental. It's that this film casts you as a character without ever telling you. You are not sitting in the passenger seat, you are not observing from a neutral camera, and whether you notice it or not, you are the car. That single idea is at the core of why I made this video, and what makes Pearl so emotionally powerful. The VR perspective becomes a character identity, and the film uses that identity to make 5 minutes feel much bigger than 5 minutes. Pearl was developed inside Google Spotlight Stories, a kind of research playground where Google explored whether immersive cinema could become mainstream entertainment. They brought in director Patrick Osborne, who actually had already won an Oscar for his animated short film called Feast.
Thank you, the Academy, for recognizing short animated films. They're my favorite thing to make and watch.
And instead of making another traditional 2D short film, he wanted to try something riskier. A narrative told entirely in 360 degrees, from inside a car, with no real traditional editing. So Pearl, it's a simple story really. A father, his daughter, music, time, and the moments that make up a childhood. The car becomes their home, their stage, their memory container. We see the dad driving little Sarah around while he plays on the guitar. We see her grow older, her friends show up, she eventually takes the car out on her own. And later she becomes a musician in her own right. Until the car finally breaks down. It's sentimental, it's sweet, it's universal really. There's a shot early on when Sarah is tiny, barely old enough to walk, and she is standing on the back seat. He is singing, she's laughing, and the whole world is just this car, this song, this moment. And then the film cuts forward. She's older, then older again, friends pile in, the car gets messy. She learns the chords herself, and at some point you realize you have watched an entire childhood pass by. And it only took a few minutes. That compression of time is something Pearl handles with a gentleness that is hard to articulate. It doesn't announce the passage of time, it just lets it happen around you. But in VR, something else is happening. When you watch it for the first time, the VR version feels like you're inside the passenger seat, like you are simply there, observing in space. But on a second viewing, the perspective stops feeling like a seat, it starts to feel like an object. You realize that every shot is from the same fixed point in space, and that point in space is the interior of the car. The space you are in now feels more alive. And here's what's interesting about that realization. It doesn't hit you like a plot twist, it creeps in on you. You start noticing that the camera never moves on its own actually, that it never leans in when something emotional happens, that it just receives, it holds everything without reacting. And slowly you understand that this is not a camera at all, it's more of a thing, a specific stationary, inanimate thing that has been there the whole time. That realization changes the way the story hits. This isn't just a story set in a car, this is a story from the perspective of a car. The car isn't a prop, it is the vessel of the narrative. The silent witness to this whole father-daughter relationship really. And suddenly the film becomes about memory, not as human recollection, but as environmental memory. The car is the one thing that experiences all of these moments continuously, even when the characters come and go. Most films show life experiences, but Pearl is a film where the frame itself experiences those moments. I actually spent months studying this film for my thesis, running participants through both versions, measuring how they experienced presence, immersion, and flow. One of the things that struck me the most wasn't the data, it was watching people take their headsets off after the VR version. And they would just sit there for a second and realize that they had been transported into this world that was rich, that had emotion, and where they felt lost in for 5 minutes. Classical cinema builds emotion through composition, montage, and shot selection. Consider how Denis Villeneuve frames a conversation. He will cut to a close up of an eye, a hand, a glass on a table, a reaction happening in the background. And every one of those cuts is a decision about what matters. He is building meaning through selection. Or consider how Alfonso Cuarón uses a long take. The camera drifting through a scene feels free, but it is completely staged. Every moment is designed to land your attention exactly where he wants it to be. And that is the grammar of cinema. Controlled, deliberate, invisible direction of your own gaze. Pearl has none of that. There is no cut to Sarah's face when something emotional happens. There is no slow pushing on a dad when he realizes she is growing up. The film just simply cannot do that. So instead of showing you where to look, it makes you feel it by putting you somewhere. And in this instance, it's the car. The emotion has to come from the space itself, and not just from the editing. The viewer becomes a silent consciousness inside the world, rather than just a watcher of images. You are not watching the moment the father plays guitar for little Sarah. You are physically inside the space where it happens. Your body participates in the memory, and not just your eyes. Think about how rare this actually is. Cinema has spent 100 years developing tools to make you feel like you are there. Close-ups, sound design, score, handheld cameras. All of it is trying to close the distance between you and the screen. Pearl doesn't close that distance. It removes it entirely. There is no screen, there is no distance. There's just a space, and you are already inside it. And this is why the 2D version is so revealing. The 2D cut removes that identity layer. The perspective becomes more conventional. The narrative becomes more cinematic and more polished, but less uncanny, I would say. The 2D version works, but it works like a normal animated short film. The VR version, however, works because you are a quiet, inanimate witness to a family and their memories. And that is why Pearl, in only 5 minutes, feels way larger than its runtime. By binding the film's emotional arc to a perspective that is not human, and by letting VR define that identity. So when we ask why Pearl was nominated for an Oscar, it isn't just because it was innovative. It's because that innovation served the emotional logic of the story. The technology was not the headline, the technology was the narrative device. Now, if you haven't seen Pearl yet, I really implore you to watch both versions, the VR one and the 2D version. Notice how different the same story feels when your body is allowed to be inside the space versus when the film is simply shown to you from the outside. Because when you come back from the VR version, you will understand something quietly profound. You weren't watching someone's memories, you were the place those memories existed in.